SHAZADAM. We start with SHAZADAM, which is not really a news.
We can.
It's not really a news story because it's already completely debunked, which I knew it was going to be debunked. When Connor told me about it, I was like, this is not real. There's no way it's real. And sure enough, within 24 hours, every single person involved with the book, with the company, retailers who'd read the early copies, every single one of them said, no.
Yeah, my take on it was, I'm wondering if it's a joke in the book.
Yeah, I think it is.
What it is, they've published... So this came from the site that we do not want to name because they're terrible, as proven by this exact article.
Mm-hmm.
They actually now have a copy of Infinite Frontier Zero.
Right.
So expect things to be spoiled, basically. Everything will be spoiled before it comes out.
Steer clear.
Yeah. So do your best, folks. I did look at the panels they posted that had this just a couple hours ago, actually, as we record this, because I was like, where has this come from? I have to know. And I don't think it's a spoiler to tell you what the context of this is. It's basically some people, I don't know where they are, what country they're in. Superman's like, oh, yeah, there. And they say, SHAZADAM was here. And Superman's like, what, Shazam was here? And they're like, no, SHAZADAM, because obviously they don't know what he's actually called. So they're linking something they do know with what they, that maybe there's a language barrier. I don't know exactly, but clearly there's some cross communication, and that's where it's come from. And that's all it is.
And that, I mean, what I said as soon as I heard this is, I'm like, yeah, this probably comes from inside the book, because there's probably I assumed it was maybe someone was making fun of him and called him SHAZADAM as a one-panel joke. This is the same thing, though, is that there's an in-context moment where someone gives him a stupid name. It does not equal DC Comics are renaming Black Adam as SHAZADAM.
Right. But Pete, then it's not a story. It's just a fun thing in a comic book, and you can't get clicks from fun stuff in comic books. So you gotta milk the outrage.
Clickbait trash is what that was,
and that's why we don't like that specific website, because sure they have scoops and they might have someone on the inside, but they do this type of BS, and it doesn't help anybody. And then you have the creatives weighing in, and like you could tell that Bendis was just kind of like, guys, don't fan the flames.
I believe his tweet was just, rumors are stupid.
Yeah,
honestly, I'm more annoyed at just people in general for even spreading this on Twitter, or even for a second anyone thinking it actually might be true. Do any of you have a brain? Really? Like, come on, seriously. If you thought this was real for a second, you're at least somewhat stupid. You have to be. There is no way this was ever going to be true.
I just love the idea that a character with 70 years of history, something like that, that has never once had a name change in all that time, is on the verge of their solo movie debut with a high-profile name attached to it that has been...
You could say the highest profile name right now, right? Like...
Whoa. It's not Gary Busey. Let's not say anything crazy.
But yeah.
But, my point is, The Rock's been hyping this film up for years at this point already. It is, officially, going forward, it's there. It's being talked about in a very public capacity as Black Adam, and now they're going to change his name. Yeah, sure.
Right.
And that's ignoring what the shipping name is supposed to be in the first place.
Yeah, even ignoring that.
Okay, so that's out of the way, right? SHAZADAM.
It's still fun to say, though. Like, SHAZADAM. Like, it's great.
That's because if you put Shaz in front of anything, it's funny to say. Shazamat, Shazapeter, Shazakana.
Shazam. Wait.
There you go. All right. So on to actual real news that we should pay somewhat attention to. So we know Yara Flor's get her own book. It was originally going to be debuted in March, but it wasn't in the solicits, of course, when we actually got those. It just got pushed a little bit to May. Maybe I'm missing something in this article, but I believe this was originally a 6-issue series, and it might still be that, but I don't see any mention of it being a 6-issue limited series.
It definitely was, and maybe this is part of why it's delayed, is they've changed that. It's possible, but just because they don't mention it doesn't mean that it's not.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure. I'm going to assume it still is, and then just get a nice surprise otherwise.
We'll know for certain in the solicits because it
Mm.
will say one of 6 if it is.
Yeah, which won't be yet because that'll be next month's solicits. We'll get this in, or not?
May? No,
Yes.
we should get those next week, right?
Oh, you're right. No, we have. I was thinking we would have only had 1 month of post future state solicits, but we have had 2 because we had a couple.
Yeah.
We have 2 books.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, okay, we'll get them soon. I am. I mean, if this ends up being an ongoing, then great because I'm on board.
I mean, even if it's just even if it is just a mini, I guarantee there's plans beyond that.
probably
Unless, of course, it completely bombs and doesn't sell, in which case yeah, sure, they
I mean,
probably won't, but that's not going to happen.
They've already committed to a show, right?
Well, not committed.
we
They're
know-
developing a show. Is the difference?
They're developing a
But-
show.
Uh.
Yeah.
No, but I get where
Uh,
that's coming from. The point there is, if they're already pushing to that extent, they're probably feeling confident in that she can sell a
She's-
handful of issues.
And she's front and center in that Wonder Woman wraparound
Mm-hmm.
image, for Infinite Frontier. So I think that if I had to guess, I would say it's going to ongoing, versus staying a mini. But I'll take as much Yara floor as they want to give.
Yeah. So that is that. So nothing super exciting here, but to get to the actual new books. So this one's interesting in that there's a new Red Hood book coming, but it's also interesting in it's the first official ongoing, which is actually set in future state. It's not present day DC. It is a future state book, starring Jason Todd, and the plot's going to be about him hunting Batman and the Bat family. The book's called Future State Gotham, which may even suggest to me that it might not always be a Red Hood book. It might switch after.
Right.
I think no, they've actually mentioned that it's the Red Hood story is the first 6 issues.
There you go.
But the fact that it's Gotham and not Future State Red Hood means there's probably going to be different stuff after that, right?
Which admittedly means that even though it's focusing on Red Hood to begin with, that this is probably worth checking out. And that artist whose name I learned last week and I've forgotten is has done some of the art here.
Yanis Milo
Giannis?
Milo
Yes.
Yanis. God damn it, I can't remember
Milan Giannis.
that one.
Milo no Yanis. There you go. Anyway, so yeah, he's done the art here. So yeah, so it feels to be delving into sort of the status quo that we've learned about in Future State, Batman and all the surrounding titles.
What's really interesting about this to me is, so we've got obviously the Future State story with Red Hood going on right now with this team.
Mm-hmm.
So we got those in the 2 issues. Is that in Dark Detective?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. So we got that.
Dark Detective, yes.
Whatever. Look, I've been drinking. Shut up.
Of course he has.
Then we've got the Gotham anthology that's coming. Batman, I think it's called Urban Legends.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a Red Hood story in it. And that's Williamson writing that for sure. But that's presumably present day, along with the rest of the Infinite Frontier stuff. So, and then we've got this coming in May. So I wonder if we have like those 2 issues that are in the present day with the Red Hood story setting up, leading into the future state stuff that we're getting in this, and then maybe that'll rotate out of that anthology book and we'll have something else in the May solicits.
I suspect it probably will. If not right away, then soon after. No, it's interesting that they're continuing this magistrate stuff and they're continuing all the stuff that they are set, because there is a lot of stuff set up, and now that we're actually getting the endings of some of these stories this week, this is the first week we've had endings of like 2-issue arcs or whatever.
Yeah.
There is stuff open. There's open for more stories. So
on that stuff, Tynan's newsletter this week, he talked about his plans for Gotham coming up. He mentioned a few new characters and stuff, but he talked about there will be an arc in the very near future that will be establishing the origins of the Magistrate and Peacekeeper, 1, and going through that stuff. So that is something they are tackling, after Future State.
I think
that's the plan.
The concern I have with that is that it's fine with Batman, where I'm kind of into like the Future State's like status quo. When it comes to something like say Flash, the idea that they're having to be locked into what that's set up for the future is like, oh, I hate you so much. Stop it.
It's
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, because like that and the Wonder Woman stuff, because we know that's pretty much following on, like in some ways, because that's also from the end of Metal in a lot of ways with the Diana stuff.
Yeah, and
so
all
that makes sense.
and all the Yara stuff is so separate from Diana that it doesn't really affect. Like when Diana comes back to present day at some point, and she will, You know, it doesn't matter what they've set up in Future State Wonder Woman for Yara because Diana's on her own. She's doing her own thing. You know, they're not tied to anything with that really. So ups and downs in that sense, but yeah. So that's Future State Gotham. So, and to be fair, the Gotham corner. I mean, obviously Yara's the exception, and she is probably the single best part. But in terms of the best corner of Future State, I think the Gotham side of stuff is mostly the best part.
I would say it's definitely been the most consistent, at least like from an editorial perspective. It's been the most cohesive for sure.
Yeah. So. That's cool. I mean, that's a fine place. But I do wonder if we get maybe one or two other Future State ongoings if they want to continue any of the other corners.
Well, I mean, we know that the Midnighter story is set.
That's in the backups. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's set in Future State. So I'm wondering, you know, if there's going to be more rolling out.
Yeah, or maybe it's just maybe they'll just be in backups in other books, and the truth is that Batman/Gotham's the only one that can kind of sustain its own book based on sales.
Big enough, yeah, it's possible. But I do think it's interesting that Future State isn't just this 2-month experiment. They are keeping it around in some form or another.
Because it's the future, so it's not really a different Earth, but as time goes on, it will essentially become kind of not an Elseworld per se, but like an alternate timeline as opposed to what actually is going to happen, because that's just the nature of it.
It's weird because some of it might become true, like in the sense that we're setting up the magistrate stuff, and Batman. Gotham feels like the most likely that this will be the future.
Oh, but that's what I'm saying for now. But it's not going to stick. Like eventually, we're going to pivot as soon as we're away from Tynan, and as soon as we're doing the next phase of whatever Batman's going to go, we're probably going to be shifting from.
Which, admittedly, Tynan said he has at least a 3-year plan. So
maybe a while.
Yeah, it might be quite a while till we're past that.
But definitely going down that path at some point. Another thing spinning out of one of these Future State is we're getting a mini series with the Mr. Miracle that's been popping up in the Superman books. So this is Shiloh Norman, and this is coming from the same team, I think, that are doing the story in the Brandon Easton and artist Vico Ozio. I don't know if that's the same artist, but definitely the same writer.
I don't think it's the same artist.
Yeah.
I think it's I don't recognize the name.
But so we're getting a Mr. Miracle mini, 6-issue mini.
Yeah, they said it's going to be a new origin for this character. Yeah.
That's
cool. So that's neat. He probably needs an introduction to most readers these days anyway, myself included, to be honest. So
well, again, I didn't realize he was created by Jack Kirby back in the 70s. So.
I'm just looking further down the article. They mentioned there's a variant with Valentine Delandro, and I think that's the artist that has been doing the stories in the Future State books.
Looking at the one preview page that's down below on this Newsarama article, the art does look promising. I say that not really knowing the artist that well. The title of the book, just to be specific, is Mr. Miracle: The Source of Freedom. Issue 1, I presume, is in May. I didn't actually read that, but I assume it's because we're building up to May solicits, so that's when it's coming out.
It is. It's on May 4th. So.
Oh, they gave us a date and everything. There you go.
Well, it's a good day.
No, it's not. It's a terrible day.
It's a good day.
It's a garbage day because a bunch of deluded fans co-opted it as to have meaning because it sounds kind of like a phrase. Anyway.
Look, you tweet every year that Happy Alien Day, so screw you.
Yeah.
Hey, that number, the actual number's in the movie, all right? So that's more meaningful.
Yeah, when I do it, it's different, Connor.
When I do it, it's different. That's different. All right, fine. Okay, we can all agree it's not a proper holiday like Batman Day, okay? The way Matt looked up there. Alright. And then the last bit of news I've got this week is this is kind of an intriguing little one. Is that DC are going to do a digital first series, or maybe just digital only, where they're going to publish stuff that's already been done, and some of it quite old, that just like basically they've got a library of unpublished comics. They hired people to write a book or an arc or whatever that never actually saw the light of day for various reasons. So it's kind of like a digital book that's like here's the deleted comics of our history. And they've announced what the first 3 issues are going to be. They're going to be Suicide Squad, Nightwing, and Batman stories. And they're sort of framing it. I think they're doing like a sort of wraparound with Ambush Bug to kind of give it some framing. But it's basically just here's some stories that never saw the light of day.
It makes perfect sense for them to do something with this. Like the Nightwing story is the Kelly and Lanzig story that I think was supposed to come right after the Seeley run on Nightwing at the Star Rebirth. I remember us speaking about this story at the time because they did a fill-in story and they had another one planned and it got shelved.
Yeah, I do wonder, if a lot of this is going to be like those one-issue fill-ins that they sometimes use to plug gaps between runs when they have nothing else, but they don't actually get around to using them all, and then eventually they're sold that they're just too like different from current continuity that they can't use them anymore.
That's exactly what this is, and it's not worth them printing it. They're too risky to print and swallow those costs. But digital first, and more importantly, what they're actually doing with these for the first 30 days, these are exclusive to DC Universe Infinite.
Oh, there you go.
So it's just, hey, we've got exclusive comics on our service as well, not just the stuff that's 6 months old.
Yeah, and the writer of the Ambush Bug wraparound is Elliot Killan, who I've not heard, but apparently is a writer on Mystery Science Theater 3000. So that's an interesting little tidbit.
That kind of makes sense for what they're doing here, then.
Right. See if they actually did the silhouettes and had him do commentary to all these comics that never saw the light of day. That'd be
hilarious.
That would be, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a neat little thing. So if your curiosity gets the better of you, I'm not actually sure I'm actually excited to read any of these necessarily, but that's a cool thing to exist.
I'm intrigued, and I might check just because I've got DC Universe anyway. I might as well. I'm not paying anything for them.
It's the sort of thing where if someone says, "Hey, this one's really worth reading," if one gets a bit of buzz because it's really good, then I'll read that one. But I'm not really that fussed about reading all these deleted comics because, some of them might just not have seen the light of day because they weren't that good, and that's okay.
But they were fully produced though, right? Like,
yeah.
So yeah.
Which is why I say, DC isn't losing anything by doing this. They've got them all sitting there anyway. They might as well throw them out like this. Why not? Right? It's easy content.
If anything, they're going above and beyond, but even bothering with the wraparound, I mean, they really could just say, hey, it's an anthology of books that never saw the light of day. And just title it that way and it'd be fine.
I don't think anyone would have complained at that.
No. The fact that they're actually doing a little wraparound with some, kind of an in-ute story reason for seeing these stories is kind of, you don't really need to do that, but cool,
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah. So there you go. That's unless there's anything else that I have missed that you want to bring up.
They did give us the list of the teams and stories that are going to be in the Infinite Frontier Zero issue. If anyone's interested in seeing what to expect from that.
Sure.
So they mentioned there's a spine story which they're saying will be the framing sequence, and that will be Snyder, Tynan, and Williamson, I believe, on that. So that kind of makes sense. They've been spearheading a lot of this stuff. And then Williamson will be writing an epilogue. Unfortunately, that will be drawn by John Romita Jr. It sucks. But other stories, most of these are the teams that are going to be on the books going forward. But there are a couple of exceptions. So we've got Justice League by Bendis and Marquez. Batman by Tynan and Jimenez. Wonder Woman by Cloonan and Conrad and Martinez and Morales. And what's interesting is Wonder Girl by Joelle Jones and Jordi Belair. So they're using the Wonder Girl name in present day continuity for Yara.
Yeah, we knew that because her book's called Wonder Girl.
Yeah, but just that's being set up in this issue and spinning out of that.
Cool.
What is interesting is Green Lantern Alan Scott by Tynan and Stephen Byrne. And he did say this is going to be a sequel to that Alan Scott story that was in the Green Lantern 80th.
Yep.
So that's an interesting one.
Cool.
Teen Titans Academy by Tim Sheridan and Rafa Sandoval makes sense. Superman by Philip Kennedy Johnson and Jamal Eagle. Yeah. Green Arrow and Black Canary by Joshua Williamson and Alex Maleev.
Maleev?
Yeah.
Arrow and Black Canary. Now that is interesting.
Now, obviously, they're not announced to be on any book yet. It's possible that there's speculation that there's maybe setting up for something in Bendis' Justice League, especially with the Maleev there, because obviously they're frequent collaborators. But
and the Leviathan stuff.
Yes,
Maleev
exactly.
Was doing, so.
Yeah, and that was Green Arrow related.
Yeah, if anything, it could be setting up because we know we're supposed to get another Leviathan mini at some point, so maybe we're setting up that more than an ongoing.
Could be, but I think what's interesting is Williamson's writing this, not Bendis.
Right. Well, I feel like Williamson has become Bendis' protege in a lot of ways, especially since Bendis came to DC. And so a lot of the stuff, because he's writing the Justice League Future State stuff, Williamson is.
That's
you
true.
know?
Yeah.
So like, and then he's taking over Justice League. So I'm sure, you know, and again, if you haven't read Nailbiter, Bendis shows up as a character in an issue. So
It could just be
it's
that.
the
It is
whole-
worth
the whole
mentioning
thing.
though that Williamson doesn't have any ongoings, and well, actually, maybe the Robin book. I think that was him, but he did.
Robin, yeah.
He does have. He has said he's got multiple things set up at DC that aren't going to be announced till later in the year. So there's always the chance this could be one of them. That there's a Green Arrow
It could
book
be,
coming.
yeah. We know he's got the Robin, the Damien book, and then
Right.
he's doing all this Red Hood stuff, both in the anthology and in the Future State one.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a couple of books a month that he's still doing, even in March.
Yeah. So I'll be
By
interested
May,
to
I
see.
suppose.
Because it's been anticipated a Green Arrow book now. It's actually been a couple of years since that book ended. So
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to see a new ongoing Green Arrow, and especially if they title it Green Arrow and Black Canary, which would be nice.
Yeah, I'd be all for that. Last couple of stories: Stargirl by Jeff Johns and Todd Nook. Green Lanterns by Jeffrey Thorne and Dexter Soys. That's the ongoing team. And then what's a little bit interesting is The Flash by Joshua Williamson and Howard Porter. And that's the only one here that is looking backwards and not forwards, because all the rest of the books are the upcoming teams. But that's the one, obviously, that's just
So,
had.
I'm wondering if this is his actual capper. Like it wasn't just his final issue. This will be his grand goodbye. You know.
Could be. I think it's interesting how much Williamson has in this issue, because he's part of the Spine story with Tynan and Snyder. He's doing the Green Arrow and Black Canary. He's got a Flash story, and he's got the epilogue story as well, with unfortunately Ramita. But that's presumably separate from these. So that's a lot that he's doing in this issue.
Yeah, and I just remember him being announced for Flash, saying that John's handpicked him, right, and being a little bit familiar with him from his indie work. So like, it's super cool now that he seems to be one of the premier DC guys.
Yeah, he's up there. It's like him and Tynan are the forefront of this next generation. I would say.
Yep.
Yeah, along with that Alan Scott story, and maybe to an extent Stargirl, although it feels like any GSA they're setting up is more in the past rather than present day.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on this GSA potential book, either from Snyder or Tynan. Like someone's doing GSA, damn it.
I'm shocked they didn't announce it this week, because I don't know if you saw the next animated movie is the JSA World War II. And they've been releasing like the first trailers all this week. So I'm surprised they didn't like time an announcement to coincide with that.
Usually they reveal books on the run up to solicits. The fact that they did a batch of them this week when solicits aren't until next week makes me think that they've got a couple of big things to actually reveal next week before the solicits. So it's entirely possible that anything as big as like a new GSA book, because as much, I mean, these announcements are cool, but they weren't huge announcements by any means.
No, they're just adding to the slate though, in a good way. Like they're filling things out, and they aren't the tentpole books.
But I could see one or two big books being announced next week before the solicits for me, and maybe GSA will be one of them. I mean, I've been waiting long enough. Go on, DC.
we can live in hope.
And see it through. Don't bungle it like Legion, right? Matt Stillhart.
Yes, please.
or Young Justice as well, because that one, by the sounds of it.
I mean that's true, but I wasn't as thirsty for Young Justice. Young Justice was a cool idea to bring him back, but I mean there was several Teen Titan things going on.
No, I know you weren't, but I think there were a lot of people excited for Young Justice, and were waiting on that kind of not all of that exact lineup, but that era of teen heroes having their team again. And it doesn't seem to have gone down that well.
Don't worry, there'll be a mini series next week called The Death of Connor Kent, and it'll be delightful.
Well, he's going to Suicide Squad, so it checks out.
Wait, does that mean you're going to be reading Suicide Squad, Matt, so you can read Connor Kent?
Negative.
All of Matt's dreams for the first 4 years of this show just got crushed, didn't they?
Legion, Connor. So now I'm just like, hey, I'm going to start focusing on characters I don't like. Like Batman.
That's a great backfire. Batman's going to have his most successful year ever, with the most books ever.
At Connor's urging, I read the new Tynan newsletter, and I'm like, dude, I would love to sit and talk to this guy.
His just the back half of that where he talks about his outline of what he thinks the industry is and where it should go. Is just like, I'm so glad he's getting into a position of not power, but a position to spearhead things at DC in a direction that is moving forwards and not just same old.
Right, not constantly looking back. But then I look at Infinite Frontier, and it kind of flies in the face of a lot of what he said. But at the same time, you have to keep updating because you're DC.
Yeah.
You're, you know,
Like, just to point, what he actually said about like his Batman stuff is the idea that in this timeline, this is the furthest along Batman has ever been in continuity. This is the oldest Batman has ever been in continuity, not counting Dark Knight, whatever. Right. And he wants to play with that and not just we'll go back, we'll bring Alfred back, we'll do year one stuff again, we'll go back to having all the younger Robin. He wants to push it forwards in new ways, and that's exciting. Right,
and that is good because that's something that I, as a longtime comic fan, like as much as I love the nostalgia trips and these smaller characters that show back up and whatnot, I do like the fact that we're not treading on the same things in Batman that we've had over the last 10 years.
Yeah,
that's what I like about Tynan's Batman book. Sometimes as frustrating as it can be, like with the whole Ghostmaker stuff, it is kind of new Gotham. In
and I think that's why this period where Bruce Wayne's not got money or not as much money, we're setting up the magistrate into the future state status quo. I think it might stick a little bit longer than maybe we're expecting because Tynan is pushing for it, because he's like, no, let's do something completely different with it and not just revert to the Batman status quo. That's exciting.
Right. It is.
I'll always be a supporter of things moving forward. There's nothing more frustrating in comics when things do progress, you like how they've progressed, and then they revert. And one of the vicious cycles we're in is that a lot of those progressions that we did like from before, we want to come back. Not because we want to go back, is that they never finished. It was like
they were heading in a direction that we liked, and we want to see the continuation of that rather than where we've reverted to.
I know that applies specifically to anything here, but I'm almost a little bit worried that in a few years' time, okay, we'll go through a lot of this, and then it'll be like, oh no, back to status quo.
And so he also kind of defended that version of continuity in that these are who the characters are, and yes, if we treat them all like it has happened, then you can keep moving forward instead of having to go back and go, oh no, it didn't happen like that, right? So in the same way that it refutes a lot of the people that don't like continuity because it's too convoluted and it's too, I shouldn't have to read all of this stuff. But at the same time, he's like, well, yes, you don't have to read all that stuff, but you just have to acknowledge that this stuff has happened, right? And that this is who Batman is right now.
The only thing I will say, the only cynical thing, because I like a lot of what this sounds like, but the only cynical thing I'll say is that he has himself very recently committed the trope of inserting stuff into Batman's backstory that's very important to this new character he's introduced, and move forward. Stop shoving things into the backstory.
Yeah. I think that's a slightly different angle on his idea of looking forward as opposed to backwards. He means like recreating these it's year one again,
I get what he's saying. But I am adding on to this that equally to me is frustrating because you're trying to shoehorn things into like history that weren't there. Build from scratch.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think we're all kind of on board on the Ghostmaker being a bit weaker.
Yeah.
Shit. Yes, a bit shit.
he's introducing another new character. I think he said the first appearance is technically in 106, but in reality, their story starts in 108.
I don't think I'm shitting on Titan here because I've enjoyed Punchline. I've enjoyed Clown Hunter. A lot of his new characters that I've been fine with.
But it's Ghostmaker's origin. You're very much on the record talking about it's annoying that this is just another character from Bruce's past that's come back to haunt him.
Yeah, someone who he was sparring with constantly through his years of training. Like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. I mean, look, not every new character that he creates can be a big hit. That's fine. But if the majority are, I'll be happy. Because like I say, really happy with Punchline. Clown Hunter's cool. Looking forward to seeing this new one. I'm forgetting the name. I think he did tell us, but
it's Mary Miracle, something like that.
That sounds familiar.
Miracle Mary. Yeah. Well, and he's gonna have this new version of Scarecrow, which I'm not a fan of the design, but I do like what he said, where they're trying to get away just from the Baghead version that we got.
He was made a big push to have the hat back and be like, no, this is Scarecrow, not just Batman Begins. With the Baghead.
Right, not just Jonathan Crane. Although seeing the syringes on the fingers and the Arkham
That's the very
games kind of design,
That's a very video game.
I'm kind of not a fan of that. But the fact that he says he wants Scarecrow to look something like you would see an actual Scarecrow out in the middle of a field, I think that's pretty cool. And especially Tynan being a horror guy and what that means for that character and the state of fear just tells me, like, okay, maybe I'll keep collecting Batman physically. When I wasn't, I was just digital. But now it's kind of like,
Suck
well,
it back in.
shoot, man. I also, like, I want to support, I don't know. And I know all the money goes to the same place, right? It all goes to DC.
No, but
right?
the reality is they do count physical sales as more valuable than digital,
right.
Even though they get a higher cut from the digital ones.
Right. I wanted, and me buying a physical book, something that I have to put away and like that takes up space, I guess proves to my own stupid, part of myself, it means more, right? That I have like physical Titan books versus ones that just sit in a digital cloud, Yeah,
I'll defend the syringes on the glove, right, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at least what the game was trying to do is that because they were treating the sequences more like dream sequences, nightmare sequences, it was intentionally evoking Freddy Krueger. I think that's kind of the point of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like it or not, I think there was at least a strong thematic reason why they made that choice. It wasn't just willy-nilly, let's just throw syringes in his fingers because it's cool.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as someone, like, I like the more psychological aspects of Scarecrow. Like, one of my favorite Batman stories of all time is where the people in Arkham tell Scarecrow he's not scary anymore, that they know his gimmick. Like, he's been beat up by Batman so many times, no one's afraid of him. And so he becomes like a serial killer and starts killing random people and puts Gotham back on notice. And it's really effective, and he's not wearing his costume. It's like a little 2-issue arc in Detective Comics from like the mid-2000s. I forget the name of it every time.
I think you've spoken about this before a long time ago when we talked about our favorite stories.
Yeah, and it's just like, I just love that concept of Scarecrow as, yes, he is a psychologist. He knows how to weaponize fear. It's not just the gas. Because that was the other thing, is Batman challenges him. He's like, you're too reliant on the gas. And he's like, well, I can do it without it. And so I like that aspect of him too. But then again, syringes are scary, right? Like, especially if you're Connor. So who knows? Pete, have you seen what he looks like, the new Scarecrow?
I haven't actually, no.
Okay, I'll find the picture and throw it up.
Yeah, it says a lot that, don't get me wrong, I think we're all enjoying Future State well enough.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely some good books. Some books we're not enjoying as much, but there are definitely stories we're enjoying. But I think we're all kind of excited and looking forward to getting back to regular continuity as well. And
I think that's always the case with these things. So even when your 1 or 2 month break is good, if the books are good, and they've been obviously mixed, but there's been some really good stuff in there. I think you always want to just get back to the ongoing world. I always have that feeling. Especially, I felt it this week. Even though there's a couple of really good books this week, I really felt it this week because I'm like, okay, we're on month 2 of this now. I'm ready for the world back.
I think that's how, like, a lot of the gimmick months that were in the New 52 every September, they got away with purely because they were 1 month. Don't get me wrong, you often felt it by the end that you were ready to get back to it, but it was 1 month, so you were like, all right, fine, it's only 1 issue of each book. I think, this is obviously closer in style to Convergence in that, okay, it's a full 2 month break from everything. Don't get me wrong, this is way better than Convergence. Like, there are a lot of books here that we are enjoying. There was
a lot of cool stuff in Convergence though, just like, Superman running around like Daredevil, because he didn't have powers, where I feel like here there's a lot of cool stuff too, but I'll be happy when we're back to the norm, like, that's fun in small doses. But and then I read Wonder Woman and I was kind of like, okay, this doesn't necessarily have to be Future State. That's just a Yara story, right?
You could take that exact story and set it in present day and just tell us it's present day, and we'd be like, sure, fine.
Yeah, there'd be no reason to suspect otherwise.
No.
So on the Scarecrow image that Matt sent me, just because I'm seeing it for the first time, gas mask is cool. The hat looks a bit weird, but I think it's just the angle of this image because it's like from underneath, so it looks like he's got more of a. He's like made like an afro out of straw, which I don't think it actually is. I think it's just the under.
I think it's just because he's looking up at it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the brim essentially. I think that you're seeing there.
Yeah. Long hair's a bit. I mean, I'm sure it's a wig, but whatever. The long hair's a bit weird. But I mean, I kind of like the idea of the gas mask element into the mask.
And I like that
Cool.
the needles on the hands are
Yeah.
actually like taped onto or stitched into the gloves. They're not like just on the end of his fingers. They are on top of them. Like they are there.
Well, and they have tubes running to them, like Bane. Like like Venom. So, but no, it's really cool. From a horror guy like Titan, like of course he's gonna have a Scarecrow story waiting in the, So, but
Miracle Molly was the name.
Miracle Molly.
Yeah.
There you go.
I just happened to see it right under it was right under the Scarecrow picture.
Yeah. So, but cool.